Tonight, we are the party for change. The Scottish Labour leader Anna Sarwar pledges Scotland will be at the heart of the next UK government if Labour win the next general election.
If you want to kick the Tories out of Downing Street and if you want Scotland's voice at the heart of the next government, vote Scottish Labour.
Also making the headlines, jurors in the Emma Caldwell murder trial are told to convict a man who's shown repeated patterns of sexual violence towards young, vulnerable women.
In sport, the Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers admits Lille Abada may leave the club.
And he's never going to give it up. We catch up with Rick Astley as he prepares for a Scottish gig nearly 40 years after his first hit. I'm Courtney Cameron in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. The Scottish Labour leader is warning another term of a Conservative government at Westminster would be an unbearable nightmare. Anna Sarwar has set out why he believes his party is the only party of change, promising Scotland will be at the heart of the next UK government.
Speaking at his party's conference in Glasgow, Mr Sarwar also vowed to drive down NHS waiting lists by closing a tax loophole. Our political correspondent Ewan Petrie reports.
Labour has a spring in its step, buoyed by two by-election victories over the Conservatives down south. Anna Sarwar described the Tories as mired in scandal, division and chaos.
Imagine 5 more years of Jacob Rees-Mogg, of Priti Patel, Lee Anderson, Liz Truss, Suella Braverman and Rishi Sunak. What an unbearable nightmare. So it falls on us and only us, the Labour Party, to bring back hope for our country, and the sooner we get rid of this entire shower of Tories, the better. That's why we need change, and that's why change matters.
The Scottish Party leader also took aim at the SNP.
The SNP wants Scotland to settle for sending a message. Well, I have more ambition for Scotland. The Labour Party has more ambition for Scotland. The people of Scotland have more ambition. There should be no limit to our ambition. So this year, yes, let's boot the Tories out of Downing Street, but more than that, let's put Scotland at the heart of government, be ambitious for Scotland and change our country for the better.
This morning, hundreds of business leaders warned Labour's North Sea windfall tax will lead to job losses.
Now, let me be clear. Oil and gas play a major role in the energy mix for decades to come. There will be no turning off the taps, but we will also accelerate the transition to net zero.
The party is promising to speed up the planning system, and it says ending the non-dom tax status will deliver £134 million for Scotland.
I commit a future Scottish Labour government to investing every penny of that in our NHS to increase capacity and drive down waiting lists. That will deliver the equivalent of 160,000 more NHS appointments every single year.
An hour-long speech light on policy ended with another attack on political opponents.
If you want to kick the Tories out of Downing Street and if you want Scotland's voice at the heart of the next government, vote Scottish Labour. That's what change means. That's why change matters. Let's go make that change happen. Thank you.
This was a speech with a heavy emphasis on change throughout. Labour believes it is the party with momentum. The challenge for it now is maintaining that right through to the general election.
Ewan Petrie, STV News.
Our political editor Colin Mackay was also at the conference. So Colin, what did you make of it?
Well, Labour is buoyant after two spectacular by-election wins in England last night. One of them recording a 28% swing from the Conservatives. That's the biggest since 1994 in the run-up to the Tony Blair landslide victory of 1997. But they're trying really hard to avoid complacency, and they have plenty problems of their own. I mean, they've effectively sacked another by-election candidate in Rochdale after he made anti-Semitic views about the war in Gaza. And there will be big protests across at the conference tomorrow about Gaza, while Labour debate backing an immediate ceasefire.
That will be going to conference tomorrow morning. We all want the same thing. We want the fighting to stop now. But the key thing about any ceasefire has got to be sustainable. We can't have this in and out, ceasefire, no ceasefire. It's got to be sustainable so we can get to a permanent peaceful solution and we can get to that two-state solution that we all want.
But at conference tomorrow, will you back an immediate ceasefire?
Well, I don't get a vote tomorrow at conference because I'm not a delegate to the conference, but we've been working together and getting the motion together.
Backing out of this, would you back an immediate ceasefire then?
Well, that's the policy. We all want this to stop. We want the fighting to stop now. Keir and David Lammy have been clear on that. The Conference will be clear on that tomorrow as well.
And you'll vote for that in the Commons next week as well?
Well, we haven't seen the motion yet, so until we see the motion that the SNP put forward, we can't make a determination on that.
But if it calls for an immediate ceasefire, you would back that?
Well, we want the fighting to stop. Our policy is clear on that, but it's got to be a sustainable ceasefire because this has got to stop, and it's got to stop for the long term so we can get to that permanent peace that we all want to see.
Now, Ian Murray will speak to conference tomorrow, but today Anas Sarwar repeated the word change 60 times during his speech, an average of once a minute. But he also acknowledged that he has to persuade people that Labour deserve to win. It's almost like a Jedi mind trick. He's telling voters that Labour is the change they're looking for.
Colin, thank you. The jury in the murder trial of Emma Caldwell have been told to convict a man who's shown repeated patterns of sexual violence and committed a litany of appalling offences against vulnerable young women.
In a closing speech, the prosecutor claimed Ian Packer had lied and lied again to detectives investigating the death of the 27-year-old Emma. The 51-year-old denies the murder and 35 other charges against multiple women. Vanessa Taff was in court.
In their closing speech, the prosecutor painted a picture of Ian Packer as a violent man with a callous attitude towards the women he met for sex. 51-year-old Ian Packer regularly hired sex workers from Glasgow, and today the jury heard that he felt entitled to do whatever he wanted with them. He told the court he went to Limefield Woods in South Lanarkshire with a number of women 6 times, claiming he took them to a different part of the forest. He said he'd never been to the exact location where Emma Caldwell's body was found in May 2005. Numerous women who have given evidence have described their encounters with Packer as rough and often non-consensual. The prosecutor described the accused as flying into a rage if he didn't get his way, and that if he paid for something, he was getting it. Ian Packer is facing 36 charges of numerous offences against a number of women. He denies all of them and claims he is an innocent man. The prosecutor is expected to finish addressing the jury on Monday. This will then be followed by a speech from Ian Packer's defence advocate. Vanessa Taff, STV News at the High Court in Glasgow.
To other stories, and 2 further cases of measles have been confirmed in Scotland. 5 have been recorded here since October, all of which have been linked to travel amid rising cases across Europe. Public Health Scotland is encouraging people to get 2 doses of the measles, mumps and rubella vaccine, especially before travelling abroad.
Staff at the Scottish Qualifications Authority have begun industrial action in a dispute over pay. Around 400 members of the Unite union are taking part. The action started today and includes a ban on overtime and weekend working. 2 24-hour strikes are also planned over the next fortnight. The SQA says there will be no impact on coursework, exams or grades.
Now, a mother with a rare form of terminal cancer has made an emotional plea for greater support and research to be given for those dying from the condition. Stephanie Thompson has extra-renal rhabdoid tumour, so rare doctors estimate she's 1 in 325 million.
She's praised the care she's received so far from her team, but says being denied access to clinical trials and experimental treatments feels like being handed a death sentence. She's been speaking to Ollie Dickinson.
Stephanie Thompson is an award-winning hairdresser who loves spending time with her family and friends. But in 2022, her life changed forever. She had been told she had a localised sarcoma and would require a small operation and radiotherapy to remove the cancer. But just days later, she received a devastating diagnosis.
Further biopsies had come back that it was extrarenal rhabdoid tumour, which is a children's paediatric cancer normally found in the kidneys. They've never seen it in an adult before. And they explained that I would need to start an intense course of chemotherapy from the following week. I started 18 weeks chemotherapy, which turned into 14 months because I was so unwell with it.
It's such a rare form of cancer that it's almost never found in adults. In fact, Stephanie's doctors in Scotland have told her they've never treated the condition.
6 weeks later, I went for a post-op, just an ordinary chest x-ray, and the chest x-ray showed that it was all in the middle of my chest. It was in my lung again. They arranged for a CT scan and confirmed that it was now terminal because of the amount that was in the chest and the lung.
The rarity means little research has been done. It also means Stephanie isn't eligible for almost any clinical trials to help find a cure, something that has devastated the young mum.
I'm a single mum, I would literally try anything. And if they say to me, safety procedures, this might kill you, that's a chance that I should be given as an option. The cancer's going to kill me anyway. So why not give the patient the option? But the options, they're just not there. And it's not the consultants, the doctors. I mean, my team at the Beatson are amazing, they really are, and they're prepared to try anything they possibly can.
Specialists say clinical trials are extremely strictly monitored, and that can make them unsuitable for some rare cancers.
We need to make sure that when we are looking at investing money into research and clinical trials, that it's going to have the best outcome that it can have for the most number of people. So it has to be very carefully controlled, it has to go through a very strict process. And because we're talking about cancer being so many different disease types, then you have to look at clinical trials almost for each individual cancer type.
Stephanie has thrown herself into fundraising and awareness. She says she'll never give up, not just for her and her family, but for everyone living with a rare form of this terminal disease. Ollie Dickinson, STV News.
Other stories in the West, and a former footballer who killed a teenager in a drunken hit and run in Glasgow has been jailed for 6 years. Kieran Dixon struck Aidan Pilkington whilst driving at high speed through Anniesland in September 2021. The High Court heard the ex-Celtic B team and Rangers youth player was 3 times over the alcohol limit. A man has appeared in court charged in relation to offences involving explosives after police raided a Glasgow flat. Shezad Khan also faces firearms and drugs charges following the discovery on Broomhill Drive yesterday. The 50-year-old made no plea and will appear again within the next 8 days. A delayed Calmac ferry being built at the Ferguson shipyard has passed the first phase of sea trials. The MV Glen Sannox sailed down the Clyde during testing, which Ferguson Marine described as overwhelmingly positive. A major action plan is being launched to try to save Scotland's rural communities in the face of depopulation over the next decade. Fewer people are predicted to be living here by 2033, but critics say the Scottish Government's aims don't go far enough. Nicola McCalley reports.
Sharing a chat over soup and cakes, this community cafe in Fort William aims to bring people together and reduce isolation. New figures show fewer people are living in rural areas, with the issue set to get worse by 2033.
The young people are moving out. They're going to Glasgow, they're going to Edinburgh. You know, they're moving away from here. There's nothing for them.
Young people trying to get on the property ladder. It's very difficult in Fort William, in this area.
The shops that's here is a disgrace. There's not even a shoe shop in the town.
Today, Migration Minister Emma Roddick was in the town to launch an action plan targeting areas such as housing, transport and jobs. Critics say a £180,000 fund to be divided between the most affected councils doesn't go far enough. But the Scottish Government says the money will help communities as part of longer-term support.
Population balance is an issue and that depopulation is not felt equally across Scotland. So what we're doing in this plan is looking at the local drivers of depopulation, in particular local areas, and the reasons that people are not coming to those areas or not staying in those areas, and how national government can support local communities to tackle those drivers.
The government says that when it comes to tackling rural depopulation, it's aware there is no such thing as a quick fix, but it wants to listen to communities. And here in Fort William, people had plenty to say today. Organiser Hannah Francis gives guests a warm welcome to the 20th Fort William Mountain Festival today. She moved to the area 11 years ago, but she says there are challenges to living here.
There's loads of people who've moved here for Fort William and for the surrounding area, but the town itself is just a little bit shabby. It's just a little bit unloved. We're in the Nevis Centre here. We're in a world-class position at the bottom of the biggest mountain in the UK, and the roof is falling down around us. You know, we've got buckets everywhere.
The true scale of the depopulation problem will become clearer when results of the 2022 census are released later this year. The government hopes its plan can help keep people in these fragile areas, reversing trends and boosting the country for the future. Nicola McCally, STV News.
A bear left injured and traumatised after Russian shelling of a zoo in Ukraine has been settling in at his new home in Scotland.
Yampil, an Asiatic black bear, has been recovering from his journey and getting to know his new keepers. Today he received some very special visitors who've been eagerly waiting to welcome him. Our reporter Laura Piper has more.
For the last few weeks, Yampil the bear has been settling into life in Scotland. That means lots of cucumbers, his favourite snack, and getting to know the locals. But today he received some extra special visitors. It's been a while since Yampil has heard the familiar voices of home.
Ласкаво просимо до Шотландії. I like him. He's cute and he's kind.
He's kind. Do you think he'll be happy here in Scotland? Why?
I don't know. Just because I'm feeling good here.
We saw the
bear
Yampil.
He's so big, so cute.
Thank you to saving our bear, to giving him a second chance.
Named after the village where he was found, Yampil was concussed by shellfire when he was discovered in eastern Ukraine. He was evacuated through Poland to Belgium before finding his permanent home here in West Calder.
We, as the organisation that's supporting all the Ukrainians, found that really touching and really important to bring all the kids here and just to show them our amazing bear, and just to pay our gratitude to the zoo, to the owners for saving him and giving him his second home.
The children also prepared some thank you drawings for Yampil's keepers.
He's a big bear as well, he's a big boy. He's quite particular about his food, about the food that he likes to eat. So I've been told by the keepers that he'll only eat, his favourite's cucumber, but he'll only eat whole cucumbers. He doesn't want them broken up into bits. He likes things like watermelons, but again, they have to be whole. So he's quite interesting. We're still learning about him, we're still learning about his personality right now, but the keepers are loving working with him, and he's settled in really, really well.
The zoo is now fundraising for a new enclosure for Yampil. For now, he's happy with his favourite meals and his new young friends. Laura Piper, STV News, West Calder.
Now, a weekend of sport beckons. Here's Raman.
Sure does, John. Thanks very much. Good evening to you all. Brendan Rodgers admits Leah Labada may have to leave Celtic if the situation in Israel continues to affect the 22-year-old. Abada was left out of the squad against St Mirren on Sunday and will once again be missing for the visit of Kilmarnock tomorrow. Ronnie Charters has more.
He's created many memorable moments in the green and white hoops. But will Leah Labada play for Celtic again? With the conflict in the Middle East, Brendan Rodgers admitted the Israeli winger is still not in the right frame of mind to feature for the club. Many Celtic fans are supportive of the Palestinian cause, making for a difficult situation for those involved. Rodgers insists the player's welfare is his top priority.
This is a young guy at, 22 years of age. Far, far away from home. You know, people can talk about what's going on there and then they can forget about it. This is the reality for him, it's his life. Every single day, every night, families in a war. So it's a really, really tough situation for him. And when he's ready, if he ever is ready, then he'll be able to give us everything.
He said if he's ever ready to play again, is that the situation? It could be that he may have to look elsewhere even for a loan to some.
yeah, it's possibility, but we'll see. We'll work together on it.
Meanwhile at Ibrox, after Rangers moved level on points with their Glasgow rivals following their win over Ross County, Philippe Clement insists he's giving no thought to the possibility of the title being decided on goal difference.
Not until the last game, about goal difference and things like that, because I ask my players every game to score as many goals as possible. There's no difference there. I want them to be ambitious from the first second until the last second, to take the maximum out of every game.
Dujon Sterling returns from suspension for Rangers' trip to St Johnstone, whilst Greg Taylor is back for Celtic as they welcome Kilmarnock tomorrow. Ronnie Charters, STV News.
Hearts boss Stephen Naismith believes VAR is good for the Scottish game. A VAR independent review panel deemed that in the latest round of Premiership games, 13 decisions were incorrect. Top flight managers have been giving their views on VAR.
The stats and the facts show that we're getting more decisions right than wrong. So, I totally agree that it impacts the experience. But from my position, if that impacts the experience of people and a wrong decision goes on the wrong side of my team, that we then suffer for it, I'm not interested. I want us to get the best decision, the right decision.
Do fans want it in football? Do fans enjoy it in football? And I think the general consensus that when I speak to people is no. So that's the most important things really in football. Without that, it's pointless really, isn't it? So do we persevere with it until it gets better? Well, it looks like it's going to be persevered with.
Well, let's take a look at all of the weekend's Premiership games. Hearts host Motherwell at Tynecastle, while St Mirren are away to Livingston. Hibs take on Aberdeen at Pittodrie, and Dundee face Ross County. Well, there's a big match in the Women's Premier League on Sunday as league leaders Rangers host Celtic. Joe Potter's side are 4 points clear of their rivals ahead of the clash at Ibrox.
They look very different to last time we played them. They've changed styles a few times since then, but we just need to make sure that we're playing our game. We know when we're on it that there's not many teams and players that can handle us. So, if that doesn't give us the confidence that we need, then I'm not sure what does.
I think that the pressure is maybe more on Rangers being number one and haven't lost yet, and we are just going to do our very best to keep building on what we're building on. So that's what I look forward to on Sunday.
And sad news to end tonight's sport. Former Rangers forward Ian McMillan has died at the age of 92. That's all we sport tonight.
All right, thanks Raman. Well, now it's time to get a look at the weekend weather forecast with Sean.
A breezy morning will be followed up with a flurry of fresh delights for lunch. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
A very good evening to you. Well, today has been drier than yesterday. That's the drier day. Remember yesterday's weather? I talked about the weather pattern. A little bit drier today, then wetter again tomorrow, drier on Sunday, and then more rain coming in on Monday. So switching back and forward in the next couple of days, but it is remaining mild. Temperatures overnight tonight, 8 or 9 degrees, roughly where they were last night, and still around average for the day at this time of year. Not the night, by day. So a very, very mild night to come. But through tonight we still hang on to a fair amount of cloud. There'll still be the odd light shower at times as well. And then tomorrow we see that next band of rain coming in. Probably a dry start to the day in some more eastern parts, but that rain moving in through the morning and the early part of the afternoon. So by the end of the afternoon it will be very wet for many of us, and there'll be some heavy outbreaks of rain as well. Top temperatures 11 or 12 degrees Celsius. There's tomorrow's rain going through. This is Sunday, so tomorrow's rain to the east of us, Monday's rain to the west of us. So we're in between those two bands of rain. Little bump in the isobars, so the weather should be better on Sunday. However, here in the west we will still hang on to a good cluster of showers, particularly across the Highlands and also Argyll and Bute. But again, it does remain mild, and that's the case into the early part of next week. I think Renfrewshire doing particularly well on Sunday. Temperatures around the likes of Johnston and Paisley around 12, 13 degrees Celsius. Not feeling too bad when the sun's out. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally, Rick Astley first danced his way into our lives as part of Stock, Aitken and Waterman's Hit Factory. Now, almost 40 years later, the singer-songwriter continues to make new music and tour.
Rick spoke to our entertainment reporter Laura Boyd about his musical journey, and he asked for advice on wearing a kilt for his only Scottish gig at the Hydro on the 27th of February.
You came into my life like a hurricane.
Rick, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Coming back to Glasgow on tour.
It's always a fun gig, there's no doubt about that. I would say that because I'm talking to you and talking about doing that, but there's certain gigs, I think, that you speak to other artists and they say, Scotland's always good. It just is. I just try and enjoy it, to be honest. I'm too old not to enjoy it. I am in it for the money, of course I am, but I'm in it for the whole package, the joy of actually doing it.
Gone, 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 like the snowfall at the end of...
You had a great start with Stockake and the Motormen.
Yeah, I've been in bands from when I was at school. I started on drums. I still love drumming today and playing. I'm not very good, but I love it. I just get on it and
I beg to differ at Glastonbury.
I'm all right. I'm okay. I could be a pub drummer. No offence to pub drummers, but I could. And I sang a bit from the drums because I'd always sung as a kid anyway. And Pete Waterman came to a showcase at one point and he just really liked my voice and he thought I can do something with that voice. Peter wasn't a superstar. I didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Stockake and Waterman were something in the building process at that time. It just so happened I got super, super lucky that I kind of signed a little deal with them, and 6 months later they're having number one after number one after number one. So it's like, okay, that was a good plan. That was a good thing.
We're no strangers to love. You know the rules, and so do I.
I don't regret anything, and I don't regret anything I ever signed, any deal I ever did, anything, because I'm enjoying where I am now.
Scotland does have a bit of a special place in your heart.
Yes, our daughter lives in Denmark. She met a chap, lovely guy, and he is from Glasgow, and they're getting married this year. And I have to be really careful about that because obviously that's their private life and I don't want to what have you, but obviously, I mean, I also want to shout about it a bit.
Will we see Rick Astley in a kilt?
My wife likes a kilt.
You got to do it.
Like, she kind of like really likes a kilt.
You
know?
definitely have to do it.
So I've been asking people recently, actually, is that an okay thing to do? Is that okay for a Sassenach? Can I call myself that? Is that all right? And evidently it is.
If your daughter's marrying a Scot, I think you have to.
I'll wear a clown's outfit if that's what they want.
Thank you so much. Can't wait to see you at the Hydro in a kilt or whatever.
Or a clown's outfit.
Or a clown's
One or the
outfit.
other.
That's just me every
Or a bit
day.
of both, who knows?
And you can see that interview in full on tonight's What's on Scotland at 7 o'clock on STV. That's in my head now. I'm not going to be able to get rid of it. Never going to give you up.
Oh, John, my mum is a huge fan.
Your mum? Oh, great. Good night.
Have a lovely weekend.